Welcome. It's 5:30 PM and I'm calling the April 2nd, 2024 meeting of the Historic Site Preservation Board to order. May we please have the roll call?
Yes, Chair is absent today, Vice Chair Nelson,
Present?
Member Hanson,
Present.
Member Rosenau,
Present.
Member Bachman,
Present.
Member Hare,
Here.
and Member Mooney.
Here.
I have a quorum.
Great, thank you so much. May we please have a staff report on the posting of the agenda?
The agenda for the meeting was posted for public review at the City Hall Bulletin Board and on the west side at Council Chambers and the planning counter, in accordance with the city's policy.
Great, thank you. Does the board have any revision to today's agenda? Okay. May I have a motion to approve the agenda?
I'll move.
Wonderful, a motion by Rosenau and a second by
Second.
Mr. Hare. So we have a motion, by member Rosenau and a second by member Hare. Is there any discussion? No, being none, I call the question, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No, okay, great, I say aye as well. So motion passes, 6-0. Great, wonderful. Okay, wonderful. So at this time is public comment. The time that has been set aside for members of the public to address the Historic Site Preservation Board on agenda items and items of general interest within the subject matter jurisdiction of our board. Although the Historic Site Preservation Board values your comment pursuant to the Brown Act, it generally cannot take any action on items not listed on a posted agenda. There will be 3 minutes assigned for each speaker. Testimony for the hearing will be taken at the time of the public hearing. Has anyone requested to comment on a non-public hearing item?
No, we haven't had any,
Okay, is there any speaker in the audience who wishes to make public comment? Okay, seeing none, we will proceed. Sure. Or should I continue with the consent calendar?
You want to go ahead and
Sure, thank you. All right, so moving on to approval of the minutes. Does anyone have revision to our minutes of the March 5th, 2024 meeting? No, okay. I just have one question on the minute. So I know we discussed, kind of a more summarized minute moving forward. But I just wanted to note that there was, nothing in the minute that, Double Hobo and Dick Paquette made a presentation, regarding the, preservation matter symposium. It was kind of a big deal, so I don't know if that should at least be mentioned, that, they were speaking on behalf of the, Palm Springs Architectural Alliance. I think that should be reflected in the record. Great. All right, may I have a motion to approve those minutes with that, amendment?
I motion.
Was that member Marucci?
It was.
Great, and the second by?
I second the motion.
Wonderful. So we have a motion by member Marucci and a second by member Hanson. Any discussion? Okay, seeing none, I'll call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nope. Okay, motion passes 6-0. Thank you. All right, moving right along, public hearing. Public hearing to a application by Tom Ellicott and Kevin Palmer, represented by the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation for the historic designation of the Alba and Teresa residence, located at 701 North Atampia Road, HSBB case number 155. Staff report, please.
get that presentation up. We are flying today. So for the record, Sarah Yoon, Historic Preservation Officer for the City of Palm Springs. The item that is before HSPB this afternoon is a designation application, which is an owner-initiated application requesting Class 1 landmark status for the property addressed 701 North Pennsfield Road. Currently, the single-family home is located in R1A residential zone district with a general plan designation of estate residential. The lot is approximately 0.52 acres of land, with open yard space concentrated towards the front of the property, as you can see in the aerial image here. According to the Historic Resources report, which was submitted, the building was constructed in 1926 by Alva Hicks, who lived in the home for a number of years after its construction. It was constructed as one of the first spec homes in the Merita Vista tract for residential development. And the origins of the home was quite modest and conventional. It utilized a simple Spanish colonial style of architecture, which was more popular during that time period. It's a use of simple volumes, simple materials, and the photo from the Palm Springs Historical Society of the home from 1927 was included in the packet that was submitted as the Historic Resources report for historic combination. You can see in that image the surrounding context of the home and the simple architectural forms. Over the years, the homeowners have added to the property, and the report identified a period of significance that spans from the home's inception in 1926 through 1936, including the additions made by Charles Crane. Since 1936, many more alterations were made to the home, and one of the more prominent changes occurred in 2001, where an entry feature was added. And you can see that in the photo to the right. This information was also in the Historic Resources report. There's a Sanborn and fire insurance map that was included. And it provides evidence that the original home still occupies the original location of the lot. And the site placement remains the same. However, we do see that the porch feature has been altered and additions were made to the original footprint. The report goes into detail related to the historic associations of the property with significant figures like Alva and Teresa Hicks and Charles Crane. In addition, the home tells a story of early residential planning of Palm Springs in the 1920s. In the style of architecture, the Spanish colonial revival style architecture was an example of what was commonly used during that time. Based on the research that was submitted, staff does find that the property meets criteria 2, 3, and 5. We are in agreement with the application. And of course, when evaluating the property, we also look at the integrity findings. The property, especially the changes related to the front facade, we see that there are impacts to the integrity of design and feeling for the resource. The period of significance, which is in between the wars, is one that reflects the development of residential homes. In specific, we see that this particular tract was advertised as a subdivision for small estate homes. They were more modest in nature, and the application of landscape design to accentuate the natural beauty of the land was something that was part of the selling point of this area. While the design features that came later on do enhance the entry of the home, this wasn't really in line with that time period or the original design intent. In addition to the listing of character defining features that were part of the original application, staff has included other key elements of significance that are listed listed on page 8 of the staff report. The overall site design and the U-shaped floor plan with the interior courtyard does appear to be an important, significant feature that remains on the site today. The use of unadorned stucco, wood frame windows, exposed wood rafters are all continuations of the original building palette or building material palette that was used since the 1920s. Unique to this property also is the site placement of the home in relation to the existing mesquite tree. I think we all had the opportunity to visit the site, and it's really hard to see it on paper. It really is different when you're seeing it in person, but the report does identify that the house was placed in that location, taking the existing mesquite tree into account. And so we see that site placement again, and part of the landscape played an integral role in the design of this home. It's also important to identify the non-contributing elements that we see that are associated with the home today. The various expansions following the 1936 changes from Charles Crane, the placement of materials such as terracotta roof tiles were replaced with the S tiles that we saw. Much of the change has been pretty seamlessly integrated with the old, but these newer features were compatible, but this is the list of non-contributing features that we see on the site today. This includes the additions, the swimming pool, and other features such as the water features and the wooden pergolas. So while the property does meet 3 criteria for designation, staff recommends HSPB designate the property a Class 2 based on the merits, based on the findings related to the integrity. Again, the application is an owner-initiated request for designation. Really quickly, I would like to thank the owners for allowing us to conduct multiple site visits to this home. It really was one of the more critical site visits in understanding this application and the site. So we just wanted to say thank you for letting us do that. And at this time, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Great. Thank you, Sarah. Does the board have any questions of staff related to the report? Member Hanson?
I just had a clarification on the roof tiles. So some are original and some have been replaced.
I believe there's been a wholesale replacement of all the roof tiles.
Because in the character defining features, you had the clay tile roof.
Yeah, so the clay tile roof was basically identifying that that was the character defining
was.
feature. And what we see now is
Okay.
an S time.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's what I thought.
Any other questions from staff? Okay. If the applicant team is here today, would they like to provide any comments regarding the application at this time?
If you want to press the button too.
Good evening, I'm Stephen Keelan, I'm Vice President of the Palm Springs Preservation Foundation and author of this report. I'm here to speak on behalf of the owners, Tom and Kevin, who will wholeheartedly support this designation as Class 1. This was a very interesting nomination to work on because I was able to dig into the history of the old Lost Commons neighborhood, what's known as that. And there's so many, I didn't realize that all the different iterations that took. And to learn more about Alva Hicks and the way he worked and how critically important what he was to the development of early Palm Springs. He was sort of the only game in town in the 20s to build high quality architecture. Also to get into the history of some of the owners like Charles Crane, who was really fascinating and really important in the date palm culture here in the Coachella Valley during those years. The other sort of interesting thing is the post 1936 changes were done primarily by Hicks's grandson. That includes the west tile roof after there was a fire, which burned out a large portion of the building, and the roof had to be replaced. And that's when he swapped out the original barrel tile with the probably more economical S tile roof tiles. You know, it's such an important house. There is that one, the entry feature is probably the most impactful to the primary facade. So there is that, but it's such an important house, early Spanish colonial house in this neighborhood, and they're slowly but surely disappearing every year. So I think it's really important that we designate those for the people who are in support of that. I'm here if you have any other questions.
I would just like to say thank you to you and the owners I know it's been almost a 3-year process since you were first given the task of writing the nomination, so we thank you for your patience. All right, any, seeing no further questions from the applicant, I will open the public hearing. Is there anyone in the audience other than Mr. Keelan who wishes to speak on that? No? Okay, great. I'll close the public hearing now. The action is with the board at this time. Any comments or further discussion from the board? Member Williams.
So I just want to better understand, in 1970, the shed roof on the south side was replaced with a bedroom?
Are you talking?
Because the original photograph had 2 shed roofs, right?
I think the original photograph shows one shed roof.
Are you sure? Can you show that again?
Yeah.
It does, it's just one.
Yeah.
Oh, all right. Okay, that explains it.
Yeah, one shed roof, and then the extensions were recessed back with the new bedroom.
Any further questions?
Well,
Okay,
I mean, I have,
do you have a comment?
I do, but I'm not sure where we're going first.
Okay, well, the next step, after my comment would be to make a
Okay.
motion. But, just one comment, and that is, as someone who grew up here and did walking through the board of Alma, I learned enormous amount from this board. There were photos that I never knew existed, obviously, but it was highly informative. So thank you for unearthing that little bit of over comments that so many people weren't aware of. So I guess at this time, I will ask for a motion. May I have a motion, please?
Well, I think before we do that, I probably need to make some comments.
Oh, sure, go ahead. Thank you.
So yeah, I was kind of thought I'd wait for other people to say something because we have a class 1 nomination before us and a staff recommendation for a class 2. And I have to say, I am actually in support of staff's recommendation for a class 2. I don't know if that makes me unpopular today, but, and I do have, if you're all interested, I do have a couple questions. I don't know, that may have Stephen coming back, but, and I think the class 2 really hinges on the integrity issue. Although I did actually have some questions about the association of the property to, Charles Crane. Because it was only 1 year, 36, that encompasses, well, the period of significance is till 36. So if you were including that, it probably should be extended to 39 to include. But even with that, I mean, I understand his significance in the Coachella Valley generally. But usually when you're evaluating properties for their significance with a person or an individual, it's part of their productive life and not maybe the end of the life. And there's also a task of looking at other properties associated with that person and doing a comparison. So are there 10 other places in the area, maybe not Palm Springs, that were associated with him that might better represent the productive part of his career? So that's almost an aside, but I would question actually the importance of Charles Crane at all. But then there's the aspect of maybe including the period of significance for, you know, the additions to the house, but anyway, we'd call into question the period of significance altogether. So then you would have another group of alterations after the period of the initial construction. So I understand why absolutely the report included those, because it's obviously a greater level of integrity if those 36 alterations are included. And then also even the association of the house with Hicks, I mean, absolutely no question that he was really important in the early development of Palm Springs. But again, in terms of an association with a person, the implication is almost that everything associated with Hicks is significant. And usually there'd be an identification of other properties identified with him. And again, a comparison, you know, which ones really best represent his contribution to the development of Palm Springs in the pre-war period. So those are just a couple of points that I made. I did go through the citywide context statement too, because I think when we do some training starting next month, all the themes are implied in the report certainly, but maybe moving forward, this is a good example of one where we can draw very specifically on the themes that are outlined in the context statement. Because you have a context of Palm Springs between the wars, but two very specific themes within that single-family residential development and residential architecture. So, and again, those are in the report, but maybe moving forward, we could more specifically identify those with the context statement. But I think let's move on to integrity. So we have two evaluations of integrity, really. One based on the architecture of the building, and a second based on its association with persons. And the city's 8.05 of the code specifically says to evaluate using National Register criteria. So doing that, I took out my National Register book, and it says a basic integrity test for a property associated with an important person is whether a historical contemporary would recognize the property as it exists today. And hard to say, I mean, if they were walking down the street, Mr. Hicks, obviously he knows where his property was, but I don't know if he'd be standing on the street looking at that and recognizing that as his work from that time period. And then, let me see, I have another section from that. Yeah, it says pretty much a similar thought. A property retains association with a person if it is the place where the event or activity and sufficiently intact to convey the relationship to the observer. I'm just not sure that the building in its current condition really conveys its significance for association with either person. And also looking at the architecture, it would be a similar argument, you know, that there have been sufficient alterations made to the property. You know, whether or not it retains integrity of design really specifically. So for those reasons, it does say also, each property associated with an important person should be compared to other associated properties to identify those that best represent the person's historic contributions. And sorry, Stephen, I didn't see that from the report. So I just feel for me, it's hard for me to look at those sort of in a vacuum, if you will, without, you know, having the benefit of maybe understanding the larger body of the person's work or the larger body of resources associated with a person, which could be an office or homes, that specifically would be Mr. Crane. So those are just some thoughts. I also did look at the survey. It was not identified in the survey, either within the district, potential district, or individually. So for those reasons, I would support, because I personally had a hard time making integrity findings, I would support a class 2 designation for the property. So my motion would be to accept the staff recommendation for a class 2 nomination.
Any further board member comments?
Yeah.
Yeah, Mr. Mosby.
I have to agree with you completely, actually.
Peter, can you speak up, please? Thank you.
Yes, I agree with what she said. And specifically as relates to the issue of historic persons, because I remember when I've done these reports, it is really critical to identify what makes the property itself significant as relates to that person in comparison with other properties that they've been associated with. The other thing is just the entrance element itself, the front, porch or enclosure, whatever it is pretty prominent. And it's right in the center of the building, and it's the first thing you see when you walk up the property. And compared to the original photograph, not even worrying about the 1936 alterations, it's problematic. And the whole reason why integrity was added to the ordinance was because of these kinds of issues that kept popping up. And so I think that's why there's a class 2. And I have to agree with staff that the analysis made sense in terms of why it was class 2. It's not that it's not significant, but with the integrity issues that relate both to the historic personage and actually just the physical materials in architecture, when, you know, point to the direction, I think, of class 2.
Any further comment? Staff would be fair this time to invite the applicant back up to respond to the concerns that have been made regarding integrity and Mr. Hicks and so forth.
I mean, it's at the board's discretion. You've opened and closed the hearing. It's the board's discretion if they wish to reopen that and allow the applicant to make comment.
Okay, I personally would like to invite the applicant back up, if they would like to come back up to respond to these concerns, because I know there's been, before you respond, it's confusing because in the report, it recommends the class 2, but in the agenda, it recommends the class 1. So, I'm glad Member Hanson, brought that up.
That's true, actually. Oops.
So, Mr. Keelan, please.
Is it on? So where to start? The reason I chose 1936 was related to the house itself and not particularly how long Charles Crane lived in it, because the changes that he did took place in 1936. So though he lived there till he died in 39 in the house, that's why I chose that year, but I understand what you're saying. To me, it is important, you know, Alva Hicks had a history early on of building a spec house, living in it with his family for a couple of years while he built the next one and moving on. And this is one that he lived in for several years before he built the one that became his most famous house that Liberace later owned. So in my mind, it was an important aspect of how Hicks is important in Palm Springs history and relates to, you know, his early construction business, and was one of the key houses that he built, that he probably designed himself after looking at, you know, doing other projects for other designers and looking at, you know, books of architectural designs. Charles Crane, it wasn't as terms of him as a diplomat, it wasn't probably his most productive period, but in his later years, he was a date grower and hybridizer and sort of popularized the Deglet Noor date, which was the date that most people use and eat today. And so he has a productive period at the end of his life, which happened while he was in that house. You can't deny what happened at the front of the house with that entry structure, that it does impact the integrity of both 1926 and 1936.
I have a question for you.
Mhm.
Okay. Do you know of any other Alva Hicks house that have as much or more integrity that's visible from the front yard or of the front side of the house
That he lived in?
or that he built?
Yeah, well, there was a house, the one with the blue glazed tile roof was his final house that was designed by Brewster and Benedict, and that's very much intact from the street. The house that Liberace later muddied up has been restored more towards it was from the time Hicks was there. But I think if Alva Hicks were alive today and saw it, he would have known what happened in 1936, and I think he would recognize the house even as with that entry structure.
Do you have anything else there?
No, I think.
Any further questions from Mr. Keno? No, okay, I'd just like to point out that, uh, even though, Mr. Hicks bought the house early on, it was in the Hicks family, when, Carol James Hicks and Carol Lou Hicks lived there in the 1990s. So, it is still associated with the historic family. I walk through the almost every day on my tours, and I always talk about this house. And oftentimes we're lucky because the gate is open, so we can see the front elevation. So it's definitely, agreeable that, the front wall or portico, diminishes what you see, but once you're inside there, it's my opinion, that you're seeing, enough integrity to make it worthy of classification. I personally am in support of the class one designation. Thank you. And I guess at this time we'll have a motion.
I made a motion to, accept the staff recommendation as a class 2.
And I'll second that.
And just clarification for the staff, that was the intent, even though it was said differently on the agenda.
Correct,
Okay.
it is incorrect on the agenda, staff's recommendation is for a class 2 designation.
Okay, good. So there's a motion by member Hanson for class 2 designation, according to the staff recommendation. And a second by member Hare. Any further discussion? Any amendment?
Could we change the period of significance to 39? If everybody's okay with that, that encompasses the time period for Charles Crane,
For the period of significance within 1938?
when he
No.
died.
39.
He died in 39,
All right,
so.
great, so amended. All right, may we have a vote? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you. Motion passes 6-0. All right, moving along. Unfinished business. There's none. New business. There's none. And, board member comment. Do you have any comment from the board tonight? Member Rosenau, please.
Just a question to staff, and I don't expect an answer tonight, but what's the status of the orchid tree project? I drive by there every day multiple times, and I know the city put them on guard about a year or so ago, but,
So the city did approve an entitlement in 2020. That never really went anywhere, so we went through the process of amending their TOT rebate agreement. That was summer last year, and they were required to submit an entitlement package in October, I believe. We issued an incompleteness letter to them in November. And we are working to get all the material necessary to process those applications. So it's in the works, but it's taking time,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
Now, what do you mean process those applications? What are you referring to?
So they're submitting applications for redevelopment of areas north of the bungalows and the church, retaining both of the class 1
But
properties.
they've already done that. That was in the, that was on the planning commission. We approved that.
So those expired.
Right, so they're trying to reapply for them,
They're submitting a new package, a new entitlement application.
but it's the same, essentially the same thing as what expired before.
It's similar, yeah, same room count, it's just a reconfigured plan.
Does the HSPB make recommendations to council as relates to these types of issues?
So the HSPB will issue a certificate of appropriateness on the changes for the class 1 properties.
So it'll come before us?
Mhm.
And that's at that time, we could also add our comments about the multiple years of not performing.
You can.
I'll do it right now. Multiple years of non-performance. And I remember how strongly we all felt on the planning commission at the time, and that we didn't think we should give them any more time. And that the council was also very skeptical, as I recall. And I would be shocked if they would move forward, but it comes before us, then it goes to planning, then it goes to council.
It doesn't actually require council action, it would only go to planning commission and HSPB.
So what if planning commission says, no, we don't approve this? Then does it
Then
go
they
as
could
a,
appeal that to
you could
council.
appeal it, like is what he often does.
Right,
So it does come before us first,
it would, yeah, correct.
will or would?
It will. Yeah, there's actually working on their historical impact analysis letter right now, so we're still waiting for some of that information.
Yeah, this is an outrage. It goes on and on, year after year after year.
Any further board member comment? I have one, just wondering if there's an update on town country center.
There isn't an update on Town and Country Center at this time.
Okay.
And I'm assuming you're referring to the building, so near the property. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe at our May meeting, we could get a formal update on town and country.
If there's anything to report, yes, we'll bring that forward.
Okay, it looks like there's been work being done there, just as of recently, so just wondering what the phasing is like, or if there is any phasing in the works.
Mhm.
Thank you.
And again, an issue that's been coming along for 24 years now, I believe, started in 2000. If the property owner says, well, there's nothing new to report, that's actually a report. Because there's supposed to be action. Other than the securing that they did a number of years ago, and then repairing the roof and so forth. There's another one of these situations that seems going on and on and on. And does the HSPB have any jurisdiction over that since it's a class 1 historic site? Other than if they don't do anything?
I think as of right now, it falls on the code, related to enforcement and, vacant building,
I mean,
ordinance.
could we request, in-depth analysis for code enforcement?
Sorry, so you're requesting?
Yeah, I just would be curious, and I don't know how recently it was inspected for code compliance. But I'd be surprised if it would pass completely, because it looks like it's had some, damage and rains and.
I can request to see if there have been any filings of code compliance complaints on that property. I can recall the last time when we had the storm, they had reached out saying that they were making repairs to certain areas that were damaged by the storm, but outside of that, I don't have it.
Again, I don't understand, if no one made complaints and no one ever reported it, can we do that as a board?
I believe you can, as a board, submit a complaint.
Well, it would just come in as a individual request to our code compliance.
Meaning I would have to get on the phone and do it myself,
Or you send us an email and we can forward that to our code enforcement.
but it would be just from me,
Correct.
not from the board.
It would have to be something we would have to agendize and put before you for action.
Does somebody want to agendize and put forward for action? We all know what we're talking about here in terms of the years that has gone on and on and on.
What we might do is ask for an update from the property owner and see if we can
That'd be
start
nice.
there.
Could he be asked to speak here?
We can certainly request it.
And those are two pretty blatant issues that I guess you'd think would have some resolution at this point.
So the Orchid Tree project is on its own timeline, so that one, is still coming forward, but that one will certainly be before the board. The Town and Country project is one that, there's no active projects as far as I know. That would be kind of a separate request that
Okay, that's fair.
we can make.
I mean, there was the whole presentation, Leo Marmel's enlargement of it, it was gonna be a hotel, it went before the public, there was the convention center, a whole presentation about it, and that was what, 6 years ago? Anyway, you can tell I'm concerned about it.
Any other board member comment? I do have one more. So being we have a work plan schedule in front of us now. I just wanted to clarify that certain items will have to be done by certain subcommittee between now and the next meeting. And I believe those are identified as 2 items to be done by the next meeting, May 7th, showing that the subcommittee of road now and well, no, maybe not. Yeah, that committee working on inventory analysis. And then, the other committee, I believe, has been working on contact statement, just to clarify, and then as far as maintenance, it looks like our first deadline is June 4th.
Correct.
Okay, and can you clarify, at least for the maintenance committee,
Mhm.
what you're expecting from us? As far as that, June 4th deadline to identify and deliver?
Sure, and you know, it's kind of up to the committees on what kind of deliverables they want to bring forward, and those were charted in the timeline for specific, check-in points, if you will. I think ideally from the maintenance group, the deliverables were, compiling the case studies, guidelines and standards, so compiling, what other cities have done related to these types of issues. And then creating, a current list of issues that we see today. I think that there was a request. I think Vice Chair Nelson had asked for, access to some of the complaint, code-related complaints, and listed that for historic properties. And so I can certainly help with that. I just wanted, to put that out there and see what kind of timeframe, what kind of deliverables the different subcommittees wanted to commit to. If there's anything that you need from me on the city side, I can put you in contact or, put in the request so that we can assimilate and compile all that information. So at the end of at the end of this year, we can have a good collection of information and data that we can use to inform how we can move forward with, maintenance action.
Great, thank you. Not to jump the gun, but, so in terms of maintenance, as a starting point, would we, through the city, be sending a letter to the Class 1 property asking if they have identified any areas of maintenance? So are we giving them the opportunity or are we going to them first?
So right now, it's an information collection period, so we're not gonna go forward and try to flag anything, we're trying to bring together
Okay.
what we see as, case studies for other cities and how they've addressed or incorporated those ideas, and then collect ideas that we have seen, and then go from there. So again, it's not actionable in that we're gonna go out to the community and start a maintenance plan or a maintenance, schedule of any sort. It's really for us to fill in the data piece of it first, which I think we are lacking in at the moment.
Great, thank you, that's very helpful. Peter?
David? When the planning commission would have subcommittee meetings, they were organized by staff. And usually occur here on site. Would that apply for the subcommittee meetings here?
We certainly could do that. I think we're just a little bit more limited here as that we only have one staff member for HSPB versus planning commission and several staff members to assist. We certainly are happy to facilitate rooms. I just don't know that we can have a staff member at every subcommittee meeting if there's several every month.
Could you remind me what was staff's role within the subcommittee meetings? Was it taking notes or was it was an official meeting, correct? Was it open to the public?
It depended on what it was. If it was an ad hoc committee that was established by the planning commission, there's under the the rules of procedure for the planning commission, those were all spelled out. And in some cases, those were public announced meetings, depending on the topic. But most of the time, our ad hoc committee meetings are not necessarily noticed. They may be just, like this unit mentioned, they may be just information collecting and sharing ideas or bringing together a plan to what's going to be presented, because there's no decisions being made at those subcommittee meetings. Those are really, here's what we're going to do to present for the upcoming meeting.
I do remember though that you worked very hard in those subcommittee meetings because preparing materials and, for us to discuss.
Are you talking about the golf course ordinance?
Yeah, it's a good one.
Yeah,
But I think other subcommittees that I was on, you know, staff did that work, so it wasn't just sitting there. We weren't just sitting there. You actually did a lot of work behind the scenes and presented it to us, and then we would do our own research as well.
right, and so that's. I think again, that's kind of going back to this, we have limited resources with, our HSBB staff of one. And being able to still handle the day-to-day workload that position is tasked with plan checks, with, processing applications, with.
She's not that busy. All right. I
And
understand.
we're happy to facilitate a room as needed and.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you, Peter. Any further board member comments?
I guess
No, okay.
I just
Oh,
had a question
go ahead.
for, since we're talking about the work plan. Did you have for the presentations, a time frame in mind?
No, I think it's open, to, what would be most appropriate. So, I mean, we can have the meeting, you're referring to how long that each presentation will be,
Yes.
correct? I didn't have a specific time frame in mind.
But there may be other agenda items,
There will be a,
hearings and, okay, so just something to keep in mind.
Great. Thank you, member Anderson. Any further board member comment? Okay, turn it over to staff for any comments you have for us, please.
So as you can see on your agenda, we have Nikki Gomez here. Before Nikki begins, I'd like to introduce Nikki Gomez, who is the aviation airport planner for the city of Palm Springs. I would like to clarify that this is an informational meeting, which means that there are no decisions or actual items being taking place. Just as a reminder, any exterior changes or impacts to the designated area of the airport are subject to the reviews outlined in the historic preservation ordinance. And so that is not the point of discussion here today. This is an informational meeting, giving us, tips on what's going on, at the airport. So with that, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Nikki.
Thank you and good evening. Good evening, Vice Chair and members of the commission. My name is Nikki Gomez. I'm aviation planner and thank you for having me. And this is essentially kind of providing you with some information on what's going on at the airport. And not too much of a detail, but enough to kind of give you some idea. And so I kind of just broke down into these big ticket items, which is some of the projects as it relate to the terminal. And the process of the master plan and where we are on that, as well as some restorations that we foresee at the terminal. And so for the projects, I'm sure the commission is aware that we are undergoing a massive concessions program, which entails the renovations of all our concession suites or areas, and that encompasses the retail, food and beverage, which are the restaurants. So those are the 13 spaces identified here, both retail and restaurant, and the areas that are of interest would be at the Wexler terminal. And so these are the two areas, which includes the restaurant and retail and now coffee area. And so just to highlight, so the back area there is it opened towards the secured side. So as you enter, or to get your bags checked, that's how you would access the site. And this will be the new Las Vegas Terraza and Coffee House. At the back corner of this area, that shape there, that would be the commissary kitchen that would essentially support all the other restaurants in the airport for prepping. The one right at the pre-security side, which is the pink door, that actually was revisited as we were just going to do vending machines as it is now. And I don't know if you are aware that it was previously a Starbucks prior to that. And so we are going to essentially use it with the same footprint as it was, and to ensure that food, prior to security. And so those are the concession items as it relates to the terminal. As for the bigger, projects, and this is the baggage claim and the baggage handling system. So the baggage claim, which is located at the northeast portion, is the expansion of that. And what it will do is to make sure that we are able to hold the capacity that we are being demanded of, I should say. So it's going to expand and include 4 carousels as we are depicting here. And so the visitors are able to then now able to corral and go around and pick up their luggage and expand the facility to the northeast and north of the existing baggage claim area. We are still on 25% design, so as you see now, we are at the floor plan, I should say design, and there's no details as of the features, just as of yet, and we are in the operations feasibility as to the amount of capacity that we could hold and alleviate the existing condition. As for the other side, this is gonna be at the southeast portion, and this is already an existing inline baggage handling system. This is where the luggage goes in as you are checking in your luggage at the ticketing wing. This is already an existing facility with canopies there, so this would just be an additional square footage and the reconfiguring of the canopies to ensure that we are, it's more efficient in terms of, you know, the luggage that's coming in, feeding back there. So as of right now, I think we're even below the 20% capacity, as this is just showing the footprint that it would touch and the reconfiguration of the canopies. And as of the master plan, so we are at not necessarily the tail end, but closer to the tail end than we are on at the beginning. So we get this comprehensive master plan back in 2023, and this is a master plan through 2045. And so we have our projected forecast of 6.5 million passengers at the end of this master plan. So it's quite a bit. We have definitely an increase of general aviation, which is private use of aircraft. And this master plan confirmed that, of course, we need additional terminal space, parking facilities, and rental facilities. And fortunately, our runway length is sufficient to accommodate that. So as you see here, this is the ultimate phase 4 of the selected alternative that was put forth to the city council. Now, we are still in this portion because we are in discussion of the location for the contract, which is the consolidated rent-a-car facility. That is in the orange box there at the northwest portion. So this particular alternative is the reuse model, which will still utilize the Wexel facility as the head house of the airport. And from there, it'll expand from that point. And so as you see, of course, the regional will be gone and expand towards the southeast portion. And so there's reconfigurations of the street as it comes to, and of course, the parking areas. So this is, I just want to remind that this is at its ultimate and phase at 2045, and the hope is to get there, but you know, there's some changes that happens along the way that, you know, that would shift some of these items. So as we stand right now, so this is kind of a rendering of what this may be, and I'm sure that you know, that's why this has been an item of discussion, especially that Conrack there, that orange building, as to configuring other potential sites for that. And that's an ongoing discussion right now as to where is the most appropriate.
Could you go back one?
Sure.
Like what you just showed goes way out over here. In the next slide, right? Doesn't just end,
So that would be where, that's, mhm,
so that's this,
correct. And that's why we had the need to show this.
and it ends here currently.
Correct.
And what is Conrack again?
It's a consolidated rental car facility.
Oh, okay.
So everything that you would do from renting your car to parking the car, maintenance of a car is all consolidated in that
Is it
facility.
multi-story? Is it
It's multi-story.
like 4? 5? Holy Moses.
So it's a single dominant,
It's a single dominant.
dominant element on the campus there.
That's correct, and to your, this was obviously a discussion at this moment, because the council has wanted to have other choices as to other areas that would be of interest other than this. Now, this is still an option, but, we're discussing of other ways on where to go that.
Is this the phase 1 that was approved?
This is the alternative. that-
Or alternative one that was
that-
approved?
A one that was approved, correct.
So the council has approved this.
I'm sorry, it was partially approved, but the contract is still in discussion, so in a way, this is the phasing that was, sided with, but it's not approved because of the contract location.
So this is the only part that's currently the project, right? That was discussed.
So,
This is
Right
extension of the
over.
baggage claim.
so right now, right over one more, it will be included in the
This,
darker green. It would be. included
well,
in
this is,
that.
this already exists, correct?
Correct, but the baggage claim will be incorporated in that darker green. So that
I mean, currently baggage claim ends like right here. It's just this portion here.
right, but we're only moving very, very little, we're only moving a.
This is the
probably-
existing building,
Correct,
and this is the extension that is currently, been approved. Okay,
not quite, not quite, yeah, approved because of the Conrack.
okay.
So I guess this is helpful, just to kind of see that in that, exactly, and so it was pivotal that we provided that prior as a presentation to the council to make sure that we understand massing for what we're proposing for the alternative. And so with that, where are we on the master plan process? So we are still on the selected preferred alternatives, because it's still not identified exactly what that is, and it will come before the city council meeting on the May 9th. And April 17th would be for the airport commission meeting, and so that will be a discussion item for that particular alternative. Now, we're gonna have an open house on June 4th for the next phase to discuss it. And aside from the Conrack discussion, it will also be the airside alternative, which is all the alternatives that's happen at the runway and all the other facilities airside.
Is there any federal money involved?
Yes.
So do you have to then do a
Yes.
full NEPA review with CEQA?
So we're almost there, so under implementation, so CEQA would be kind of the last one there, so the goal is to clear CEQA and then NEPA will get started after that.
Peter?
I guess I'll mention my involvement. Early on, before I was on HSBD, Gary Wexler, myself, Steve Keelan, then Susan Sequoia Jensen were asked to visit and work with and consult with the airport management on this project. But the only part that has come before, that has been presented to us for, under section 106, the architectural historian who works for an environmental consulting firm was hired to do the analysis, put together their findings. And we were asked to look at them and see if we felt that it was appropriate to how it would affect the airport. And so it was only for the baggage claim, not the giant 5-story thing, just the extension, which is about 2 posts, or is it three? Two support posts, so extending the canopy to the north. And that's pretty much it. And so we, or at least I found that I concurred with the findings that the architect historian made. I don't recall what Stephen or Gary, I think they both found. Yeah, the findings were appropriate for section 106, which is the whole federal involvement.
This is, if.
So
just
this is the part we're talking
clarify.
about, right?
Correct.
Yeah, so it's extended this far. These two, right? Is that what we're talking about?
So, so existing is what it is now, right there.
Oh, to here?
The blue highlighted area is what, how much is getting extended from the existing building.
That's what we evaluated.
Correct, that's what it is. So it is an expansion, the existing
Right.
building. Existing baggage claim area.
So other people are watching this too. And so that's why it's important that you come before us and explain how things are progressing, but clearly there's a lot more analysis that has to be done and a lot more. Yeah. This is-
Oh, I was just, did you do a nomination for the National Register
Yeah, I
or?
wrote it down.
Okay, so it is.
So it's on the National Register. That's how, well, I think that's why section 116
Yeah.
involved.
I have a quick question for staff before we move on from that.
Sure.
I know there's pure information, but Peter brought it up. Because this is on the national register. And it is a local class one site, and because the baggage claim extension and Conrad will physically be an extension of and will touch the original Tillman building. It seemed to me that those that comes before the HSPB.
Yeah.
And so that's my question is that does it come before the HSPB and at what point? Is it after all of these open houses and all this other stuff? Can you clarify?
From my understanding is once we reach a certain percentage, and the percent could be identified at staff level, where there's enough details, when elevations come in, then we present it to you. Because right now we are at the, I should say, infancy, which is floor plan based, so.
I would just add that, yeah, at this point, we don't know exactly what that's gonna look like, other than massing and basic site planning information. There's really not enough information for us or the board to make a decision on the certificate of appropriateness, which is what is required. So that would come at a future point.
Absolutely.
Any further questions or can we allow you to finish?
Sure. And so just, I just wanted to clarify and be mindful that this, as you see, is the ultimate phase. And so this is, projected, this ultimate phase will be in fruition in 2045.
That's 90.
And then the last thing is, I guess, restoration, and I know this is, something that we, have identified as quite important, and so, I don't know if, I'm sure that the members have probably seen this occurred in the terminal, and so this is not necessarily probably original restoration, but this is what's revealed below the existing carpet that was there, and so it's terrazzo unused, as you see in it.
Yeah.
And so, we were, obviously in luck that it was at the shape that it is, and we didn't realize, it was just kind of, in a way lucky, I suppose. It didn't look like that when it was first revealed, so, and then this is actually coming, into fruition soon. Staff has identified, and I'm sure years before, we will be releasing an RFP to restore the columns and the material, and I'm sure that you've realized that it is quite deteriorated, and so we will be issuing an RFP for professionals to, in a way, recreate and restore its material revision, and so, we will be, as soon as we put that, I will make sure that staff, Sarah is aware that that is out there, and to make sure that maybe even part of the selection panel for the professionals that will be in charge of ultimately recreating that original material for those, five basic components.
There's material called Granulux.
Right,
Which is this rough textured material that was mixed with the concrete. And the technical, the official name of it is Granulux.
Like an aggregate.
Yeah, it's an aggregate, and so they're trying to, you can see how it's corroding everything. The other question that Barry Wexler had was, when the previous renovation occurred, those columns are surrounding these Granulux posts, they're actually there. So he wants, and that we agreed, that for the extension of the baggage claim and the canopy, that they would use Granulux for the new posts, even though the previous ones currently are hidden within the columns, the posts. But the request was that those actually be restored as well, but apparently the budget at this point doesn't allow the restoration. Do you have another slide you're gonna show the columns?
I don't.
Okay.
So this specifically is for these
Right,
center
I agree, I
entrance.
understand.
Mhm.
But the issue was that we were talking about was when it goes further down for the
Correct.
entire canopy on both sides.
Correct, and yes, those were, I believe, stuccoed over.
Right, but they're hidden underneath, they're in there. Supposedly.
So if I understand you correctly, you said the budget doesn't allow for full restoration of the front column.
That is what we understand, but I'm sure everything is fluid.
So we are aware that that request for the extension,
Right,
that it was to be the Granulux material. And so I may have to come back in terms of the restoration for the entire.
right, that was the question, and that's one that we really were fighting for.
So the budget is not available, is there anything that the city historical preservation officer or the HPP can do in terms of looking for additional money or grant or anything for that being covered by the airport?
But let me just kind of put a little bit of element here, and I think the need for the columns to be there is that the drainage from the existing canopy is being utilized for the drainage to the street. And so I believe that there is scrubbers, as you see at the top of the overhang, those are being utilized in those columns, and they do.
The newer columns,
Correct.
the bigger columns.
Correct, so it's not necessarily that, you know, we could restore it, but now let's think of the drainage, where that will be then after, because it's being utilized, there's a utility to that.
Interesting.
Mhm. And what, so as part of the comprehensive plans, and this is also coming your way, we would like for us to have, and for, I should say, everybody to have some sort of basis to the ongoing development at the airport. So we have had our on-calls, which is the architects on board, that will assist us with developing the development standards in conjunction with a comprehensive sign program. And what that will do is that it hopefully to give us a baseline on the materials, the fonts on, to address the Wexler terminal and the other areas of the airport. And so we have initiated that already this February, and so we are going to develop that document, I should say. And part of that will obviously the incorporation of the historic Wexler terminal, and so we'll identify it there, and hopefully, you know, as now, when I'm gone, there's a book of reference that they could relate to as to exactly what each areas of the airport, including the terminal, should look like. And we'll identify it there. So that is our efforts into ensuring that we are moving forward in a consistent manner. And so, we would just like to share that with you, and that's my last slide, and I hope to continue, this conversation and updates with the commission.
Wonderful, thank you so much. Any further questions? No? Thank you. We appreciate your time to keep. I'll turn it back over to Sarah, if you have any further comments.
I do have a few, follow-up staff comments. One, I wanted to provide an update on the circles at the visitor center. So, I think I brought that before you all a couple months back, where there was, various departments, involved in a project related to the median. There's a traffic median out there that had a series of circle planters that were incorporated as part of the visitor center site design, that was identified later. When we were informed of a project that was going through that area, it would, essentially, remove one of the circles, as part of that project. So we've been working with the various departments involved. Unfortunately, that median was not identified as a character defining feature as part of the original designation. However, in working with the different departments, and getting them to understand the importance of that component, we have reached a point, where the, solution for trying to maintain the circle in a way that we can interpret it, yet have it be functional, is that we would maintain the outline of the existing original circle in its place. However, they need that area to be, paved or, to be solid in order for accessibility uses. And so the outcome of that discussion is we will maintain an outline of the circle in its original location. It will be filled, but it will be filled with a gray, room finish concrete. So it will function, it will have the slopes required for the accessibility. But the circle itself, will not have any sort of different intrusions on it, so it will be kind of a complete and clean circle. The edges will be a half round edging with no joints, no cold joints, no paintings, no markings. So it will help with the interpretation that happens there. Staff did consult this solution with Brad Denny, who is one of the specialists who is very knowledgeable, has an extensive knowledge of Albert Frey. And so we did have discussions with him in kind of coming to this conclusion. So there were lots of things discussed, color, texture, but at the end of the day, to keep it simple and to maintain it within that existing location was critically important for interpretation. Also, we wanted to be cognizant of using a material that can be easily repaired. So if we did something like a textured or a colored, when it needs repair, we don't want it to have, we don't want it to need a specialized, maintenance screw so that it can be quickly repaired. And so that is where we landed. The teams will continue forward with their project. And so I think that we've made a good concession, both where we have the functionality that they need and we have our ability to interpret that portion of the site design as we move forward. So I wanted to provide you all with that update. The next one is on April 10th. The airport team actually is conducting a participatory design workshop with the community. It's related to restroom renovations at the airport. These restrooms are not specific to the Wexler terminal, but they are soliciting information and they're soliciting contributions from other boards to participate in this discussion. And so they have extended an invitation to our board asking one member to attend. It's going to be a session that's going to be held at the airport. It's actually next Wednesday, and it's going to be for an hour and a half. It starts at 1:30. And again, it's just one member of our board to represent. It's not specific to the Wexler terminal, but it's looking at restroom designs at the airport, and wanted to see if there was anyone who would be available to volunteer to go to that with that. And like I said, it's going to be for an hour and a half.
I have a question though.
Yes, sir.
At one point in this whole process, the two existing restrooms were in the main terminal or, concerned, but that's not what we're talking about. These are brand new restrooms?
So
Where are
I believe it's concentrated on the non-Wexford terminal. Nikki wants to clarify.
So these restrooms will be the other restrooms, which will be at the Bono, the Courtyard, and near the Regional Concourse. So for anything but the Wexler.
Beyond
So,
security area.
Just to be blunt, why would anyone care? Do we usually comment on restroom design?
You'd be surprised, so there is a extensive workshop in terms of. Since airport have excessive amount of usage for restroom, essentially is for like functionality and materials.
Plenty of urinals. And women like a lot of stalls. I think we solved the problem.
Unfortunately, we're not going beyond our footprint, so that's the trick.
And I think, and maybe you can correct me if I'm wrong, the design may influence future renovations and.
Aha,
Yes.
To make it very comprehensive,
Cohesive.
what does that mean?
and
exactly?
cohesive design is carried throughout the airport,
Into the Wexler building?
potentially.
Uh-oh.
So it will be maybe a similar workshop when the Wexler will be the next in play, then this would be the type of practice or process we will go through.
Well, then I would like to volunteer. for this
But again,
assignment.
because it may influence the future design.
Yeah, I mean, look, I know, we know how important the existing ones are, and they have windows, I mean, they're really amazing, it's hard to believe, but they're really well designed. And, I would hate it that the new bathrooms, would somehow influence the design of the existing ones in the renovation, that wouldn't be good, probably, unless the new ones are like the old ones.
Can the public ask a question on that? Okay.
We can meet with you after.
Peter is volunteer.
Okay.
Wanna do bathroom patrol?
So Peter, for September tenth
Yeah.
at 1:30.
September?
I'm sorry, April 10th,
1:30, right?
April 10th at 1:30.
Where is it? Where is it?
It's gonna be at the airport. I'll send you specific information of where to meet.
So can I make further comment on that or?
Sure.
So my only thing would be that, the new restaurant, the new restrooms are consistent with the proposed redesign for the restroom inside and Wexford Terminal so that they're the same consistently throughout. Most recently, when I was at DFW, there was a brand new concourse with the brand new bathroom that literally opened the day before, and it was incredible. So the stalls were full length, floor to ceiling, walnut. And, each had a light up above, so you knew what was occupied and what wasn't. And then the sink, everything was paperless. And the sinks have the Dyson thing that looks like airplane wings. And so it was like wash and dry, and it was the most clean, efficient, perfect bathroom ever. So I would say, use that as a model.
Sounds good. Again, it looks like, you're being invited to, it's a design workshop, so I think that it sounds like they're gathering information and input. But I'll go ahead and put Peter down as our contact point for HSB.
Everyone's okay with that.
Thank you, Peter.
Sure, nobody else wants to go to bathroom patrol?
Perfect. And then the last thing I have on, first staff comments is, related to the symposium date. So I did send an email out, to everyone, but we have confirmed the, convention center for April 26th, 2025. And so we are set for that date and we'll move forward with the planning, that date in mind. That's all I have for you all today.
Mr. Newell, do you have any comments for us?
No additional updates.
Okay, great. I did have one response to one of the staff items about the media.
Mhm.
This is somewhat related. There's currently roundabout being designed for near the Bank of America. And I know that's in design phase right now.
Mhm.
So because that roundabout about class one historic resource, no, I mean, it is, you talk about cumulative impact. And it's gonna go right around that building on 3 sides. So I'm just wondering, what the guidelines are, whether design considerations will be taken in regard to, negating an adverse impact on the historic resource, because I do know roundabout can be kind of crazy, been quite a few myself. So, and there could be a potential for someone to veer off and potentially hit the historic resource, which would be a pity, especially after this beautiful restoration that's about to finish. So, can you give some idea or quality on that?
So are you asking if there's any input from us, or I'm trying to?
I'm just wondering, if that HSPD would be included in that somehow because of the proximity to the resource.
I don't believe that that would be in our purview based on our, purview being specifically on the parcel itself. We technically didn't have purview related to the median that we were reviewing, with the other project. In this instance, there are a number of traffic studies being done. Of course, it's never the goal for anyone to run into any sort of building, and so I believe that a lot of that is being studied out. And I believe there's separate, committees and reviews that are being done for the design of that roundabout, but it wouldn't be connected to us, and it wouldn't be within our purview.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you.
I just have a follow-up. I mean, typically for road studies, there would be, an environmental assessment and there's an area of potential effects.
Mhm.
And certainly the proximity of that to the roundabout would be within the area of potential effects, which means they would need to consider the impacts on the resource. I mean, if there's,
Well, because it's the highway,
if there's, well, for CEQA, but usually roads projects specifically have an area of potential effects that is a certain amount from distance from the actual project, but I don't know.
Are there federal funds involved in this?
And
Traffic circle?
Not sure.
Yeah, but isn't, section 1.6 is a little more rigid in terms of
Oh, yeah,
the area of effects.
Yeah.
Potential,
yeah.
potential effects.
I'm not sure if there are federal funds involved.
We would have to look into that beforehand.
Thank you. Okay, so, any further input from anyone tonight? No? Okay, great. Being done, I will, thank Nikki Gomez once again for being here. And thank you all for being here tonight. And seeing no further discussion, the meeting of the HSPB is adjourned to a regularly scheduled meeting of Tuesday, May 7th, 2024. 5:30 PM here in the large conference room. Thank you all for your participation today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.